Hello, welcome to the Budget Bob Show. I'm Budget Bob from the Wisconsin Council on Children and Families, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the basics of the Wisconsin state budget. A state budget can be a little bit intimidating, but really at its core it's not that much different from any other budget, whether it's a company balance sheet or the budget for your office Groundhog Day party. On one side you have a column that lists where the money comes from, and on the other side you have a column that lists where the money goes. After you crunch your numbers, you hope that the columns come out relatively even. Unfortunately, the columns in the Wisconsin state budget have not been coming out even. In fact, we currently have about a $5.4 billion deficit over the next 2 years. A lot of people like to envision a budget like a pie, so that's what we're going to do. Now, in this case, we're going to focus on one half of the pie. And the reason we're going to do that is because one half, the half that we're going to talk about, is the half that is made out of state tax revenue. The other half that we're going to get rid of is funds that we don't have so much control over, things like federal funds that have to be used in certain ways, or fee revenue that has to be used on things related to the thing that the fee gets assessed on. So we're going to get rid of this half over here. Just talk about this state tax revenue half. So you're already aware of some of the things that make up this half of the pie, things like the income tax that gets taken out of your paycheck and the sales tax that you pay on stuff you buy. And actually those two things alone make up about 85% of this half of the pie. Another 6% comes from corporate income tax, and you might be surprised that that number is so low. And in fact, that is a little bit lower than more than half of the other states in the country. One of the reasons that number is so low is because over 60% of the biggest corporations operating in Wisconsin do not pay any state corporate income tax. So when you add in that 6%, that brings us up to 91% of the pie. And the rest is dribs and drabs from things like utility company taxes, excise taxes, which are taxes on things you make or do rather than on what you earn or sell. So that is pretty much what this half of the pie is made out of. So now let's talk a little bit about where the pie goes. And you're already aware that things like schools and prisons are what we spend a pretty good chunk of this pie on, but you might be surprised about the proportions of what we spend it on. The biggest chunk by far, about 40% of this half of the pie, goes to schools. And that shouldn't be too surprising because the state tries to pay about 2/3 of the cost of schools throughout the state. That's a good piece of pie. The next biggest chunk, about 13%, goes for medical assistance, also a very important thing that we do not mind spending a substantial portion on. Now here's where it gets a lot more interesting. Tied for third at about 8%, let's see if I can cut two relatively even 8% slices here. In that tie for third are the corrections system and the University of Wisconsin system. That's right, we spend about as much locking people up as we do training them for important professions. Now, at about 7%, the next biggest slice, we have, these slices are starting to get crumbly. We have shared revenue, and that is money that the state hands over to local governments to do the things they do. Things like picking up your garbage and plowing your snow and providing human services that families rely on in your community. For those of you who like to look at charts instead of real pie, here's one showing where the money comes from. And this next pie chart shows where the money goes. So there you have it. In a nutshell, that is the Wisconsin state budget. If you want to learn more about the Wisconsin state budget and how it works, I would urge you to visit our website at wccf.org, and please check back again soon for another episode of the Budget Bob Show. Next time we are going to talk about the budget making process. Hope to see you then.
It's always more fun to share with everyone. It's always more fun to share with everyone.